Did President Trump lie to us? He promised no more wars, but the US just committed 2,500 Marines to the heart of the Iranian conflict. Answer yes or no. Is this a broken promise? Or is there a strategic gap only these Marines can exploit? March the 2nd, 2026. The world's economy is bracing for impact. Iran has just moved to choke the Strait of Hormuz, and every satellite feed shows layered missiles, mines, and fast boats forming a kill zone that looks impossible to crack. But while the world's eyes are on the big carriers and bomber flights, a single ship, the USS Tripoli, ordered to the Middle East. On board is a Marine Expeditionary Unit, or MEU.
In the next series of nights, these 2,200 Marines are not just going to attack. They are going to start peeling away Iran's outer defenses
and opening a lane before most people even realize the war has changed. Here is how. The MEU is strategically designed to do three things extremely well in a maritime environment. In this video, I'll break down these three strategic advantages and why Iran can't afford to let number 3 happen. The conventional wisdom says that to open this strait, the US would need weeks or months of bombing, and a massive carrier strike group grinding down Iranian defenses. But the conventional wisdom is only half right. The carriers and bombers matter, but they are not the only way in. Iran's entire war plan relies on one simple assumption, that you can't hit what you can't see or reach. They've turned the Strait of Hormuz into a narrow, 21-mile-wide trap of hidden sensors, coastal missiles, suicide fast boats, and mines. They hide launchers in caves and inlets, move them at night, and count on clutter, confusion, and sheer volume to overwhelm any attempt at precision targeting. But there is a glitch in their strategy, and that glitch is a forward-deployed Marine Expeditionary Unit. While the world watches the big ships on the news, there is a precision force already on Iran's flank. It's the MEU. This isn't just a group of soldiers, it is a self-contained, sea-based combined arms force. And over a single dark window, those crucial hours between sunset and sunrise, this Marine unit can help blind key nodes of Iran's coastal network, shield vulnerable minesweepers, and create the first narrow corridors of relative safety for shipping. These nodes are radar sites on islands, lookout posts, forward observers with communication gear. To understand the how, we first have to understand the what. The MEU is not just a bucket of Marines thrown onto a ship. It is a Marine Air-Ground Task Force, built on 4 pillars that allow it to function like a small, mobile Army-Navy air team. First, the command element. This is the brain. They bring their own intelligence, signals, cyber, and fires coordination. When the MEU arrives, they plug into the joint fight instantly, pulling data from national assets, drones, and Navy sensors, and turning that into a real-time target list instead of waiting for someone else to tell them what to shoot. Second, the ground combat element. This is the muscle. It's built around a reinforced infantry battalion, rifle companies, heavy machine guns, mortars, anti-armor teams, and combat engineers. This is the force you send when you need to physically stand on terrain, clear out a cave, destroy a radar, and hold a position against a counterattack. Third, the aviation combat element. This is the reach. It's not just a few helicopters. It's a mix of aircraft, MV-22 Ospreys for long-range insertion, a tilt rotor that takes off like a helicopter but flies like a fast airplane, CH-53 heavy-lift helicopters for bringing in artillery, vehicles, or huge crates of ammo from ship to shore, AH-1Z Viper attack helicopters for close air support, the dedicated bodyguard in the sky for the Marines on the ground, and the F-35B Lightning II, a 5th-generation stealth jet that can operate from an amphibious assault ship. Because these jets can land on short, sea-based decks, the MEU brings its own stealth fighters into the fight, instead of relying solely on distant land bases or big-deck carriers. Fourth, the logistics combat element. This is the lungs. Most units need a friendly port to refuel and rearm. The MEU doesn't, not immediately. They can sustain themselves from the sea for extended periods. They make their own water, repair their own gear, and provide surgical medical care right there on the ship. That means they can keep operating in the narrow, dangerous waters of the Gulf, even if nearby ports are under missile threat. All of this rides on an amphibious ready group, centered on an America-class ship like the USS Tripoli. This is a floating piece of American territory, parked just outside Iran's immediate reach, but close enough to strike key points along the strait. Now let's talk about the first major impact, turning Iran's sanctuary into a vulnerability. Iran's war plan for the Strait of Hormuz is built on anti-access and area denial. Mines, coastal missile batteries, swarms of fast boats, and mobile launchers tucked into caves and covered inlets along their jagged coastline and nearby islands. Airstrikes from a carrier hundreds of miles away can hit fixed buildings and radars, but they struggle to reliably kill a launcher that pops out of a tunnel for 10 minutes and then disappears again. This is where the MEU changes the problem during that first dark window. Because the MEU lives on ships close to the coast, they can plan, launch, and recover island and coastal raids within a single night, then do it again the next night in a different sector. While Iranian radars and long-range sensors are focused on big bomber tracks and large surface groups, The MEU is pushing combat rubber raiding crafts and LCAC hovercraft toward specific little rocks and headlands that matter. The LCAC, essentially a massive hovercraft called Landing Craft Air Cushion, can glide over water and onto a beach at high speed carrying tanks, vehicles, or heavy equipment. Here's the key idea. Iran's defenses don't rely solely on big bases. They rely on a network of smaller sites, radars, lookout posts, boat pens, and sensor nodes, strung along the coast and on small islands. If you take enough of those rocks, you don't blind Iran completely, but you punch holes in their vision. And holes are all the joint force needs to start pushing through. Imagine this. One night, Iran has a radar and lookout site on a small island providing early warning for fast boats and missile launches in one sector of the strait. By 0300, a platoon of Marines has fast roped from an Osprey, neutralized the guards, seized hard drives and radios, blown the radar with explosives, emplaced their own sensors, and disappeared back into the darkness, or dug in if the terrain is worth holding. By dawn in that sector, Iran's outer shell is damaged. They aren't just losing equipment, they're losing confidence about what they can see and what they can protect. That forces the IRGC to pull key assets back closer to the mainland, to move more cautiously, and to spread precious defenders across many potential landing sites. Their zone of influence starts to shrink along specific lanes, which opens opportunities for the rest of the US and allied forces. The second impact is physical, creating actual safe pockets for mine clearing and shipping. You can't just declare the Strait of Hormuz open. You have to make it measurably safer, and then keep it that way. And the most dangerous threat to global oil shipping isn't the big, expensive missile that makes headlines. It's the relatively cheap underwater mine that nobody sees until a tanker is ripped open. Mine-clearing ships and helicopters are slow, deliberate, and incredibly vulnerable while they're working. They can't defend themselves effectively and hunt mines at the same time. This is where the MEU provides the shield. Once they've seized a key island or coastal headland, they don't just leave. They dig in. They bring in mortars, drones, and joint terminal attack controllers. Marines trained to call in precision fire from aircraft and ships. From these forward outposts, Marines can watch the approaches, track fast boats trying to slip out of hidden pens, and call in fires on anything that threatens the mine-sweeping effort. If a swarm of Iranian fast boats tries to rush a mine-clearing lane, the Marines on the rock can mark targets and call in precision strikes from F-35s and other aircraft overhead, as well as from naval guns and missiles. Over a cycle of nights and days, this doesn't magically clear the entire strait, but it does turn specific narrow 5-mile stretches into contested zones, where the US has the advantage instead of Iran. That's enough to start moving limited traffic. And as more of these pockets are secured and linked, the psychological and financial grip Iran has on global shipping begins to loosen. Impact number 3 is strategic. When a MEU is in the region, Iranian planners have to consider a nightmare scenario. Not necessarily an immediate full-scale seizure of a place like Kharg Island, but the possibility that, once defenses are degraded and the joint campaign matures, a Marine unit could move against a critical oil export hub or port facility and hold it long enough to cause catastrophic economic damage. That possibility alone forces Iran to divert thousands of troops, fast boats, and air defense systems away from the forward fight, and back toward guarding oil terminals, key ports, and coastal infrastructure such as Kharg Island. Their largest and most important infrastructure in Iran. They have to keep their best surface-to-air missile batteries close to those crown jewels. They have to keep many of their fast boats in defensive patterns instead of massing them for decisive swarms in the strait. In modern war, what you could do often shapes the enemy's behavior as much as what you are doing. The MEU provides a credible, persistent threat of seizure that pushes Iran into a more defensive posture on its own shoreline. Finally, there is the political and psychological dimension. Propaganda is a massive part of modern conflict. Iran tells its people and its proxies that the US is weak, risk-averse, and only fights from the sky because it is afraid of casualties. The longer the fight stays at the level of airstrikes and long-range missiles, the easier it is to maintain that narrative. The second, a Marine rifle company films and releases footage from a captured Iranian outpost or island radar site, that story starts to crack. It shows the world, and Iran's own officers, that American forces are willing to put boots on the ground in heavily defended zones, and that supposedly impenetrable defensive belts can be breached in hours when the right combination of joint fires and amphibious raids is applied. Every missile Iran fires after that moment carries a new risk, that it will justify more raids, more seizures, and more visible losses of terrain or infrastructure. For the broader US and allied force, the MEU becomes a forward sensor and pressure tool. They provide high-fidelity intelligence that satellites and distant aircraft struggle to collect. Which cave entrances are real, which radio frequencies are active, which units are exhausted or demoralized. That information makes long-range fires, from Army missile units, Navy destroyers, and bombers, far more precise and efficient. The MEU isn't fighting alone. It is helping unlock the map for everyone else. So why does a MEU matter so much in a Hormuz crisis? Because it doesn't fight the war Iran wants to fight. Iran wants a distant war of attrition, hidden mines, long-range missiles, and swarms of small boats avoiding direct contact. The MEU drags parts of that war into the physical, close-range domain. Raids on key rocks and inlets, defended outposts for mine clearing, and a hovering threat to critical infrastructure. They smash selected sensors, shield the minesweepers in specific lanes, and force Iran to protect its own economic lifelines instead of focusing purely on choking the strait. Physics doesn't negotiate. Boats have to leave their pens, radars have to radiate, mines have to be laid and cleared in real water. If you miscalculate what a unit like a MEU can do in a single dark window, and across the first few nights of a campaign, you don't just lose a skirmish. You start to lose your strategy, your leverage, and your narrative faster than you thought possible. But here's the real question. How does a human being actually prepare for a mission this intense? How do you train for back-to-back nights of high-stakes island raids, fast rope insertions, and defending tiny outposts under missile and drone threat? The MEU's effectiveness isn't just about the gear, it's about the crucible they go through before they ever see the Persian Gulf. To see exactly how these Marines prepare for a scenario like the Strait of Hormuz, how they practice ship-to-shore assaults, night raids, and sustained operations from the sea, click right here to watch our deep dive into the massive Marine Expeditionary Unit training exercises. You'll see what it takes to join the unit that, in the opening nights of a crisis, could change the course of the war. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next briefing.